as I was just talking to, actually, I was talking to Marie earlier, and she was hesitant to ask questions today because she's inquisitive. But, we are in a place here, this is a safe zone for asking questions. And that really is the purpose of us being here, is that if you ask good questions, you get better answers. And so this is going to be something where, as we continue with what we did last month, we're going to make it to where this is asking good questions so that we can get good answers. I will throw this up again, a disclaimer, that my give a darn about offending people has really gone out the window. And that as we're taking, and we're in a culture now where really taking and saying that there are truths, there are things that are true, and there are things that are lies, it can be real easy to offend people. And so everybody's kind of, walking on eggshells and try not to do that. I have no intention of offending people, but I also think that we need to come back and recognize that there is truth, and that's what we're going to be pursuing. So with that said, is that this has changed from kind of a workshop format that we've done for years and years and years to really what's becoming a healing school. And the reason for this is I was looking at the definition of school, and one of the definitions said a group of scholars and teachers pursuing knowledge or wisdom together. And that's really what I want this to be, is not a monologue, but a dialogue, where we come together and all of us are scholars and all of us are teachers. Because you guys are bringing stuff to the table tonight, that experiences, information, insights, wisdom, truth that I don't have yet. And then I've got stuff that I've been working on, trying to develop and grow and learn the best truth for the last 50 years of my life. So with that is that we're coming together, and it's going to be a dialogue. So you're welcome at any time to chime in, raise your hand, say what you want to. Try to keep the profanity down, and I'll do the same. But as I was looking, again, at models of where is this going to go, this is a word that I shared again a month ago, is you think about in ancient Greece, you'd get these philosophers that would come together. They would come together like in the town square, and they would ask questions. They were going, what's the meaning of life? And they were asking important questions so that they could formulate their belief system based upon the truths that they were uncovering. And these groups were called ecclesia or ecclesia, and this is actually the early term for a church. And that's really the way that the church was created to be, was a place where people would come together and they would actually deliberate. They would ask questions. They would look for truth. So it wasn't so much where you had one guy up in front that was telling you everything that you're supposed to know and why. It was coming together and asking important questions. So that's the purpose of all that. Yes?
In Spanish, it is iglesia.
Iglesia. Yeah, so it's all coming from that derivative of it. So again, that's why we're here. So with that, this is us. This is our own little ecclesia coming together to ask questions so that we can find truth. Good enough? So if you remember, we said, let's start asking questions. Last time I listed a whole bunch of what ifs. Well, let's start today by asking, what is truth? I thought this was kind of funny because it sometimes seems like 1984 is more of a documentary story than a novel that was written decades ago. But in this book, there was a character, Winston. And Winston works in the records department in the Ministry of Truth. He changes historical documents to reflect Big Brother and the government in the best light. So his job was to basically create a narrative or a story based upon what the powers that be wanted to get across. He received slips of papers with texts that need adjustment, goes into the records, changes the information, and disposes of the instructions. That should sound a whole lot like what we've been experiencing in the past, really decades, but especially in the past couple years. In fact, what we see, this was in the Epoch Times just last week, federal government replaces Twitter as our Ministry of Truth. So there was the fact checkers, right? And so on any social media platform, if you posted anything that opposed what Big Brother wanted you to say, you would be fact checked. And if you fact check the fact checkers, you realize that they're kind of like Winston. They're told what to do and to make modifications and adjustments accordingly. So with that is that it makes it really confusing for us to know what truth really is, right? Because it changes. You know, the definition of pandemic changed in 2020. And there was a reason for that. The definition of vaccine changed. And so we see that they can change definitions, the powers that be. They can go back and rewrite the books so that it fits what they want us to understand. And so we need to recognize that that's not necessarily what truth is. And so truth, it seems like, it should be a fairly easy word to define, right? So here's what I found when I was looking at the definitions, that there's actually different kinds of truth. There's objective truth. This is also called absolute truth. And this is something that's true for everyone, whether they agree with it or not. So this is kind of like gravity, right? Gravity pretty much works for all of us, right? We can agree that that's a pretty absolute truth. And that with the absence of other forces, gravity is going to take us off the edge of a cliff to the ground if we step off that edge of the cliff. Now we know there's laws of lift and other things that can overcome this, but the truth is gravity is always there. Agreed? So at one time this was simply called truth. We didn't have to take and break truth down into different forms. Now we see that there's subjective truth. And this is where they basically recognize that objective facts are less important than that which appeals to your emotion or personal beliefs. So this is what we used to call opinion, right? So this is where I was even listening to like a business guru trying to talk about how you take and you grow yourself so that you can, expand the impact of what you do. And she kept talking about, well, you've got to know your truth. You've got to embrace your personal truth. You've got to find your truth. And guess what that is? That's your opinion. That's your belief. And beliefs and truths aren't necessarily the same. In fact, it's interesting is in 30 years of being a chiropractor and teaching people lifestyle stuff is my beliefs have changed because my understanding of the truth has changed. Not that the truth has changed. Does that make sense? So with that is we have to take a look and figure, okay, what is really the standard of truth? Who was here last week? Last month. Yeah, so this is, I don't know if you're familiar with
And so it
Jordan
isn't that the
Peterson.
Bible is true. It's that the Bible is the precondition for the manifestation of truth, which makes it way more true than just true. It's a whole different kind of true. And I think this is not only literally the case, factually, I think it can't be any other way. It's the only way we can solve the problem of perception.
So we talked about this last time in that our perception is going to be what our beliefs are. And because that changes, because we all look at life through different lenses, that creates a problem we don't necessarily agree. So we have to have some kind of a benchmark or a standard that we can take and attach truth to, or we can actually filter truth through. And so Jordan Peterson, if you're familiar with him, incredible thinker. This guy's brilliant. He was a self-proclaimed atheist for years and years and years. On Joe Rogan, he's never admitted to actually being a person of faith, but he talks about in all of his looking for truth, the one thing that stood the test of time was the Bible. And that it's actually a good benchmark or a good source to actually measure other truth through, to see if it lines up. So we're not going to be taking the next several months and thumping you over the head with the Bible, trying to convert you to believe in everything the Bible says, but we're going to take and we're going to use it frequently to come back and say, does this line up with something that's been tested over time and hasn't changed? So we're going to go after the truth. So one of the things is, what if there is objective truth? I know that Charlie Kirk has been having a lot of different debates with people on college campuses all across the country. And one of the things he asks people is, do you believe in absolute truth? Do you believe that there are things that are absolutely, indisputably true? And so because it's not popular to say that now, a lot of them will say no. And he'll say, are you absolutely sure that there's no absolute truth? Because with that is that's a contradictory thing, right? You can't be absolutely convinced that something absolutely doesn't exist. And so with that, what if? What if there are things that are indisputable, that are time tested and they haven't changed? That would mean that there is actually a difference between what's right and what's wrong. Not just what you feel like, right? It would actually mean that there's a difference between truth and lies, or just different lenses that we look at life through, the subjective truth. It would also mean that there's actually good and evil. And I think that this is one of those things that we all know. This is the reason we're drawn to movies and books that have conflict in them, right? Because we know inside it resonates with something where we believe that there's good and evil out there. We see it all around us, and we're always hoping that this guy's going to win, right? And so if we take a look at this, we kind of measure it through the litmus test of the Bible. In John, it says the thief, which would be evil, right? Somebody who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I would call that kind of an evil person. That's what his only goal is, to steal, kill, and destroy. And the Greek word for destroy is nidmu. We'll talk about that in just a second. Jesus came that we might have life and life to the full. So we've got the good versus evil. And this is something that, again, we've known exists for a long time. Life to the full, this is one of those things where I want to break that down even more. And so we looked at the Greek word that came from, and it's perisos. And we're going to show you the difference between the evil and the good as far as what that looks like and how it impacts and affects us. So the nidmu, this is the evil, this is the destruction. It means to make dumb, to silence, to cause to fail or perish or to destroy. And so again, if you take a look at really what a big part of the narrative over the past couple years especially has been to really create confusion, right? Every week we get a new truth that comes out. We get a new something or other to kind of keep us in this place going, I don't know. And so we know less now than we've ever known in history, even though there's more information available to us. We've kind of been made dumb. But we've also been silenced, right? Are we allowed to really ask questions anymore? Can we question anybody? Right? Can we let our voice be heard, especially if it goes against what they want us to say? No, in fact, you know what? I had to sacrifice my career because this is what the powers that be wanted me to do, was to be silent and not use my voice. And so this is what's going on. There is a control thing that's going on, and this is what their goal is. And it's to ultimately destroy us. But this perisos. So guess what? We can choose good or evil, where we're going to go. Perisos means over and above, more than is necessary, super added. I love this. Exceeding abundantly, supremely. Something further, more, much more than all, more excellent. So guess what? If we pursue good, this is what that full life looks like. If we really kind of get caught up in evil, this is what that looks like. This is one of those no-brainers, right? It makes sense that we should take and look at things through the lens of there is good and evil, and that we should do everything we can as we're seeking truth to go after the good. You guys with me on that? So guess what? You're created for this perisos. This is what we're designed to express. But how many of us have been taught to believe that over the past 10, 20, 30 years? Now, we're kind of told the opposite, right? But here's what I love. The favorite quote of all times for me, outside of the Bible, comes from St. Irenaeus. And anybody who's been around for the last 20 years has heard me say this over and over again. The glory of God is a human being fully alive. The glory of God is us being in perisos. And if you take a look around at our culture, especially now, they've actually shown that we've lost more years of life expectancy in the last 2 years quicker than ever in the history of humanity. So while we've been so focused on trying to stay safe, we've shortened our life. We're not really living fully alive. And so when people look at us, they're going to go, not much glory to see there, right? Not much to see, but guess what? There's a whole lot more that's available. And it starts with us pursuing the truth and figuring out, okay, how can we plug into this perisos? I love this too, is that when we take a look at it, it's not just about us physically being, strong and healthy and having vitality. But John, in 3 John, says, beloved friend. This is an old guy that's hung out with Jesus, and now he's getting ready to go home, kind of his last words of wisdom. Beloved friend, I pray that you're prospering in every way, and that you continually enjoy good health, just as your soul is prospering. So he's saying, you know what? We want to be healthy. We want to have physical strength and vitality, and we want to be able to be fully alive, but it's not just physical, that it comes down to our soul. And so we need to recognize that we're not just a body. We're not just a mind, but we're also a spirit. So that we really need to look at it from a body, mind, and spirit perspective. So your body, guess what that is? These are the chemicals that you're made up of, right? These are your organs, your cells, your body systems. That's your body, right? Basically, it's what we look like as a corpse. A corpse has all of these things. In fact, corpora is the Latin word for body. Then we're the soul. And your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. This is our thinking. This is our desires. This is our emotional state. All right? This leaves when our spirit leaves. Our spirit is really the essence of our being. It's the breath of life that animates the body and the soul. So think about this. If we've got two people that are, sitting here right in front of us, and we can even say that they're twins, right? They're identical twins. They look exactly the same. This person here just 2 minutes ago died. Their breath of life left their body, and now they're dead. The other person is still alive. So we basically have a breath of life that's animating the cells, making things work, still orchestrating what's going on here in this guy, but not here. The only thing that has changed is that breath of life has left. Does that make sense? So with that, but as we're here right now, we're all of these. We're expressing all of these. And as John said, I hope that you prosper in all of these areas and that you're in as good health in all of these areas, just as even your soul is prospering. That we're actually experiencing that prisos in all areas. So if we go back to the very beginning of the Bible, it says God formed man out of the dirt of the ground. So guess what? That's chemicals, right? We're dirt. That's what we're made of. That's our body. He blew into his nostrils the breath of life. This is that energy, that vitality that animates the cells. It takes this dirt and makes it to where now it actually starts functioning. Then man came alive and is a living soul. So it starts with the way that we've been created. And we're created to be all three together. And unfortunately, in our culture, we've separated all of those, right? That we focus on our physical health. That's why you're here, right? This is all physical. That's what chiropractic's all about. And then if you got some spiritual stuff you need to work, you go to church. And then if you got some soul stuff, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions, then you go to a shrink, right? So we kind of have divided all, but guess what? They all work together. And they're designed to work in perisos, abundantly, supernaturally together. Another great verse is in Job, but it is the spirit. And the Greek word here, or the Hebrew word here is ruach, which actually means, again, that vitality that's animating a person. The breath of Almighty, neshama, which is the Hebrew word that means breath of life, and that's what gives us intelligence. So if we take a look at this, these are some cool words in here. We've got this innate intelligence. The word neshama actually means not only breath of life, but it means intelligence. It means wisdom. It's that, again, that animating force that's inside of us that tells every cell how to work so that it can survive and thrive. So we've got that innate intelligence that's inside of us all the time. And as long as we have the breath of life, we get it. So the way that looks to us is that we're self-regulating. Our bodies, our minds, our spirits are actually made to regulate themselves. And regulating means bringing of oneself or itself into a state of order, method, or uniformity. So we take this chaotic universe, and there's this ability inside, this intelligence inside of us that can bring order to that and allow it to deal with what it needs to do to bring uniformity to that. We're self-adapting. That means that with all of the changes that are constantly going on, we can actually take information that's coming at us and make changes accordingly. Modification of an organism or its part to makes it more fit for existence under conditions of its environment. More fit. That means that we can actually become stronger as we become more adaptable. This is what our body does automatically with that innate intelligence. And then finally, self-healing. This is really good because has anybody ever damaged themselves? Right? Guess what? We repair. You crash your car into the side of the building, what happens? You've got to get it fixed. You twist your ankle or you catch a cold, guess what? Your body heals. So self-healing is acting or serving to heal or repair oneself or itself, such as involving or promoting recovery from injury or disease. And here's what I love is it says that we're able to repair physical, this is out of the dictionary, added emotional and spiritual damage without outside agency. Take and think about that. Without outside agency. Where is our confidence when it comes to health and healing? Do we believe that the power to heal is inside of us, or do we feel like we have to be constantly looking for the right thing that's going to make us well? This is an important thing. So be thinking about this. What does that mean to you? What does it mean that without outside agency? So, you know, guess what? Supplements may be helpful to feed and fuel the body, right? The cells, the chemistry that's in there. But do they bring healing? No, go back to these two people up here. You give this guy that just breathed his last any supplements you want. Is he going to heal better? How about essential oils? How about medication? How about the right jab? How about what is it going to take to make this guy get healthy? Innate intelligence. It's in there. Now, you take the other guy, he's still got that innate intelligence, he's still got that spark of life. Guess what? Life is stressful. Maybe he's had some conflict and his immune system is compromised. Vitamin D might be a good thing for him to help him to actually have the fuel his body needs so that it can overcome that, fight infection and recover. You know, I'm not saying that essential oils, that supplements, that good quality food, that lots of water are bad. I'm just saying that we need to take and maybe think about, where does our healing really come from? What's really the source? Because we have been conditioned to look for the magic it. And it's not, you know, it's universal, no matter where you are. I remember a conversation I had a few years ago with a husband and wife missionary. They're getting ready to go on the mission trip. And he said, I'm kind of getting a little bit of cold. I've been taking this and this and this and this. What else do I need to take? And I said, why don't you stop taking all those and take communion? And he looked at me, and this is a guy that believes in the Bible, and he looked at me like I was nuts. And it's like, where's your faith? Your faith comes by what you choose to believe on and what you focus your energy onto, but it also comes back to there's truth. Nothing is going to make this dead guy healthier. No supplement, no nothing. But it can help with a guy that's still alive. So what is true health? Well, it's interesting, and I think this is one of the reasons why in the medical community and the chiropractic community, there's always been some conflict. More and more medical doctors refer to chiropractors now, but still, if you look at the medical associations, they do not like chiropractors. B.J. Palmer was a developer of chiropractic. He said, the power that made the body heals the body. It happens no other way. Guess what? The American Medical Association, which has ownership of our health. Do you guys realize that? They actually have legal ownership of our health. They are the health authority. You have to run everything by your doctor, right? And so it all comes back to that. In fact, it's interesting is that there is only one thing that can claim to cure or to heal legally. You know what that is? Medicine. That's why if you are buying a supplement or if you see an advertisement or something, this is not designed to diagnose or treat any kind of illness or disease. Nothing legally can say that it cures unless it's a medication. So there's this, it's basically this polar opposite belief system. Only the power that made the body heals the body. Only the stuff that we can generate in a lab heals the body. Guess what? Even vitamin D can't claim to heal anything. So when the studies have come out that show that vitamin D has been shown to reverse 17 forms of cancer, what is the medical community wanting to do? They're wanting to figure out a way to come up with a synthetic vitamin D, because then they can claim that it cures, and then they can own the patent, and then they can make the money. So we've got this thing that is, it comes down, what is our belief? What is the truth that we're anchored to? So what is true health? What is true health? Any ideas? Well, let's keep going. This is what we've always kind of taken and have embraced as truth about health. And it's based on a system of suppressing sickness, right? As long as I feel good, I'm what? I'm healthy. Well, it goes beyond that, because now it's, you look at Health Magazine, and they've always got this really buff dude or this really hot chick that's on the cover. So you got not just feel good, but you have to look good, right? That's what health looks like. And so we spend a ton of money trying to make this happen. And so guess what? If we don't feel good or we don't feel like we're looking good, we got a problem, right? The problem are the symptoms that come up with that. So with that, our goal is to eliminate these things because they're the problem. If we can find a way to eliminate or mitigate or manage, which is really what our healthcare system is based upon, is managing sickness and disease, that's the goal. That's the desired outcome. So if you got high blood pressure and you can take something to lower your blood pressure, ding, 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 you just won, right? If you've got high cholesterol, you can lower it. You just won. That's what victory is. That's what it looks like. Now, if you got high blood pressure and you take medication and now you put the blood pressure cuff on and your blood pressure is lower, are you more healthy? Yeah, possibly not. In fact, you might be less healthy because there's always side effects to every medication, right? So then we get into the solution to actually help us accomplish this goal is whatever means necessary to accomplish getting rid of the symptoms or mitigating the symptoms. So again, this isn't just anti-medicine. This is anti-belief system that we need something from the outside in to fix us. Right? So this is what we've grown up, right? This is what our culture tells us. This is what healthcare is all about. And you know, B.J. Palmer, the same guy that we just quoted before, he said that medicine is the study of disease and what causes a person to die. Chiropractic, because that was his slant, is the study of health and what causes a person to live. And so we take a look at that. This is actually a different perspective of health. And this is, again, something where you guys can ask the question, which one of these seems to make the most sense? Health in this model is going to be optimal function and growth. Yeah, I've had people say, how do you know if something's healthy if it's not just based upon having symptoms or not having symptoms? Well, how do you know if a plant is healthy? It grows. It produces fruit. It increases. So guess what? If we're functioning well and we're in a state of growth, mind, body, spirit, that's the expression of health, right? But the problem is we experience impaired health. We experience impaired function, and sometimes we get stagnant and don't grow, right? Yeah, in fact, I got a good buddy of mine, a chiropractor down in Denver, and he noticed that he actually just kind of caught him by surprise that he put on 50 pounds over the last 2 years. And with all the nuttiness and stuff that's going on, he kind of forgot about nurturing his lifestyle, stewarding his lifestyle, and all of a sudden his energy was down, his moods were down, and his weight was up. Because there was impaired function and impaired growth. And that happens, right? It happens because of stress. It happens because of all kinds of different things that take place. Poor diet, poor lifestyle. But when this happens, our goal is to restore it back to the place to where we get our function and our growth coming back. So the solution, guess what? Oftentimes the solution are the symptoms that we have that we call being sick. Any idea what that would look like? Let's take a look at COVID, right? We've had this upper respiratory thing that we've been paying a lot of attention to for a long, long time. You get a respiratory infection, how does your body heal that? If your body's able to heal, how does it go about doing that? Fever, most powerful immune response our bodies have. So it goes up and our immune system kicks into high gear. What did you have, Joshua? Fatigue. Guess what? It takes energy to heal. You get a common cold, and you're on the couch for like 5 days, right? Why? The symptom is a sign that your body's working hard to do something else, right? It can be mucus. Mucus is actually something that contains the germs and secretes enzymes to break down the walls of the germs so the immune system chemicals can kill and destroy it. Mucus, what do we take? Decongestant. Let's get rid of the mucus, right? How about if you have a gut issue going on? The most powerful way that we heal that is to get stuff out, right? So what does healing from an intestinal bug look like? Vomiting and diarrhea. These are the symptoms that we call being sick that we try to suppress. And so here's where this becomes a problem. When symptoms are suppressed, things get driven deeper and deeper and deeper, and it compromises our health. Do you guys realize that antibiotics, which we swear have saved humanity, means against life? Antibiotic is against life because it goes in to kill stuff. Because we think that's the solution. We got to kill the bad guys. Well, guess what? If we've got strong good guys, the bad guys are going to lose. If we get run down, we may have to go through some symptoms to get back there, but that's what happens. So here, get an idea of this, is that we've got our primary line of defense right here. We've got our adenoids and our tonsils right here, and they basically have these, they're like sentries. They're standing there watching everything that we're breathing in and that's coming into our mouth. And if they recognize anything new or anything that's not supposed to be there, they're going to elicit an immune response immediately. And guess what happens is if we're strong, if we're healthy, if everything is good, that happens hundreds of times a day and we don't even know it. We don't even know it. The proper immune response means that it's already taken care of it and it's dealt with it. The primary line of defense has settled things. But guess what? If we're compromised, it can get past those guys, and where does it go? Now it gets into the sinuses, or it gets into the throat, or it gets into the lungs. So the first place that things go, if we're missing it, is going to be upper respiratory stuff. And so guess what? How do we heal upper respiratory? We send white blood cells there because that's what's going to kill stuff. So we get white patches on our throat. Oh gosh, now we're sick. We have to take antibiotics for that. We get mucus, we get fever, we get chills, we get all of this stuff that goes on. We get symptoms. But guess what the body's doing? It's healing. If we suppress these, if we go to Walgreens and get the NyQuil that treats 10 different symptoms, and we actually suppress stuff, so now we don't feel all this stuff that's going on. We actually shut down the fever. We break up the mucus. We get this drug effect, so we got energy back and we don't have to rest. Now this thing can go deeper. And now we end up with maybe lung infection stuff that goes into a pneumonia, or it can become chronic like asthma. It can go deeper in and start getting to ear infections and things going from there. It can actually spread to other parts of our body and become things like cancers and other types of degenerative disease. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper because we've suppressed this expression of health instead of letting the body do what it's supposed to do. So here's where this becomes a challenge, is that everything that we've been taught, whether it's conventional or alternative, is based on suppression. Guess what? I went to chiropractic school. I learned about B.J. Palmer. But guess what I was taught? If you got this pain, here's how we treat it. You got this discomfort, you got this muscle spasm, you got this tight knot, you got this infection, guess what? We treat it this way. We're taught to treat. And we're superior because we're not using drugs and drugs are bad. Now guess what? We've embraced the wrong mindset. We've bought into a lie instead of embracing a truth. And so it's taken changing my beliefs, asking questions, thinking things through to figure out, okay, which of these resonates more with a truth? Which of these resonates more with, and God created man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul, and that there's this innate intelligence inside of us. And that innate intelligence allows us to adapt and to regulate and to grow automatically. Which of these aligns with that more true? It makes it pretty simple, right? But guess what? How long have we been hearing this? So how long does it take for us to get this? Have I got it? No. But I do this all the time so I can keep reminding myself. I take communion all the time because it says, remember this. Remember what Jesus did. We need to bring back the right truths to our mind and to get ourselves to change our beliefs. Our beliefs aren't easy to change. It takes repetition. So we have to take and actually anchor ourselves to that truth and keep bringing it back to us. So who would lie to us? Who would try to get us convinced that we need an outside-in approach to health? Well, there's a lot of people out there. But it's interesting is that this article showed up in Huffington Post, but it's been in a lot of others even prior to that. And there was a book that came out years ago called Selling Sickness. And it basically talked about how they make up diseases and then they have a drug that they can actually give to us to treat the disease. And it makes us more and more and more dependent upon that. And then we're even told to, if you have this, fill out this little questionnaire and then go ask your doctor if you need this, right? So we do this, and they actually have these disease-mongering tactics. They take the things that would be normal, like a fever or mucus or diarrhea or vomiting, and they make us think it's a terrible disease. They take things that are normal, like a woman getting past her childbearing years and seeing a hormone change where she goes from having a body that's designed for procreating, for making new humans, to being creative in different ways through artistic expression and through the arts and through writing and music and so forth. They don't lose their creativity, it just changes the nature of it. But we've made that a disease. We call that menopause, right? So now we've got hormone replacement therapy to treat the disease. So we basically do everything we can to convince everybody, even if they feel okay, that they've got a disease. That what if question? that's being planted into our brains all the time that says, what if you're weak? What if you're compromised? What if you're fragile? What if you don't get the exact right thing at the right time? What if? What's it going to do to you? And so we need to, again, ask better questions with what's going on. So who would lie to us? I did this on purpose. WHO, who would lie to us? Well, guess what? It's the people that want to control us. And I put this up here intentionally right now because if you haven't heard right now, in this moment, the World Health Organization is trying to set up a set themselves into a position of supreme control over everybody that's a member of the World Health Organization so that with the next pandemic, they can actually lay down the law and make sure that it's enforced. Independent countries, communities, they lose their right to take care of things. They want control. Who would lie to us? Well, here's the outcome of it, is that we take a look at with our mindset on this, we need something from the outside in to be well. And as we take more and more medications, we become more and more dependent upon it. We see that right now, actually this goes back to 2013, 6 in 10 adults in the U.S. have a chronic disease. 60% chronic disease. 4 in 10 adults have 2 or more. So as we've gone through the last 2 years, who have been the people that are vulnerable to COVID-19? Actually, 75% of the deaths, the people had 4 or more comorbidities, 4 or more chronic diseases, 75% of them. Guess what? The people who weren't chronically ill, they didn't die. It was the ones that had health issues going on. So, these chronic illnesses are things like heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, stroke, all of these things that are epidemic. And if we've got more medicine available to us, you'd think that we would have all those things under control, right? Well, guess what? It's not just the adults, it's the kids. So we take a look at this. Between 1994 and 2006, the number of kids with chronic conditions went from 12.8% to 26.6%. Guess where it was in 2020? 54%. 54% of our kids are chronically ill, taking chronic medication. So how is it working for us? We take a look at, as we get more and more and more stuff into them, we see that in 1980, 1 in 10,000 American children had autism or was on the autism spectrum. Now it's 1 in 33 boys, 1 in 44 kids altogether. 1 in 33, 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 33. Something isn't working right. The more dependent we are on the outside in, the worse we end up getting. And guess what? It's not something that's cheap. We spend more. This is actually taking a look. This is looking at stuff from the what's this called? Commonwealth Group. So the Commonwealth Fund, they go through every year and they assess the top 11 wealthy countries in the world. And they look at things like who's spending the most money on healthcare. So this is actually the percentage of the gross domestic product. So this is relative to how big is the economy in your particular country to what you're spending on healthcare. Any idea what this red line here represents? This is the United States, 16.8% in 2019. So for every dollar that's generated in the country, almost 17% of that goes to us trying to be healthy. And we know what our outcomes are. We take a look at this. Here's how this impacts what we spend our money on. We spend more on healthcare per person, almost twice as much per person as the next closest country. We have the most expensive hospitals. The hospitals are the nicest places in town, right? The most beautiful buildings, most extensive medical equipment. We've got some awesome stuff. Technology is pretty cool. We end up having more doctor's visits because we've been conditioned, right? To be healthy, we got to go to the doctor. We have our well check every year. If you don't get that, you're not going to be well, right? Our kids receive more vaccines than any other country on the planet. In the CDC schedule, there's more vaccines scheduled for our kids than any other country. We've got countries like Japan that far exceeds us in health outcomes, and they've banned probably 2/3 of the vaccines that we still have to have our kids take, especially in states like California and even happening here in Colorado where we're losing our exemption rights. More hospitalizations, more surgeries, we take more medicine. We make up 5% of the population. We take between 60 and 90% of the drugs out there. We take over 90% of the opioid medication. which means either we're in more pain or we've just forgotten how to live and we become dependent on something from the outside in. You know what? After a surgery, what are we told to do? Take this fentanyl prophylactically so that you can stay ahead of the pain. It's insane. So we're conditioned to do that, and we think, okay, well, I'll do it. And now there's over 60,000 people that died last year from opioid overdoses. Look at this number here. 2020, 19.1 prescriptions filled in the United States per person. 19.1 per person. Now, some of these are probably ones that you're having to refill every, period of time. But think about this. Melody and I have been married for 31 years. We've got 3 kids. And if you take a look at our 5 people in our family over the last 31 years, guess how many prescriptions we filled? 0. So that means somebody else is doubling up, tripling up, increasing that. So we got people that are taking more than this, right? And gosh, if this is the secret to health, how have we survived? I mean, we're either outliers or something's happening. It doesn't make sense with what's going on. So let's look at, as we spend more money, as we take more drugs, what are the outcomes? So 11 countries, 11 top wealthiest countries that have access to whatever they need for health care. Overall ranking, us, 11th out of 11. Access to care, 11. We've got care process. Hey, getting into the channels actually works pretty well. We come in dead last in everything else. How well is it working? This is the truth. We actually have more faith in this than we do in anything else, right? And it's one of those things where we have to take a look at why are they doing this? What's going to be the benefit of this? If it's not something where they can control us, I don't see how anybody can still believe that this is about our health. And again, I think that as we take a look at what we've been through in the last 2 years, we've been hit in the face with a reality check. Is that if we kind of had some questions or some hesitancies before, they've actually stopped trying to hide things, right? The World Health Organization changes the definition of pandemic in 2020, early 2020. Why would they do that? Well, by changing the definition of pandemic, they now can call COVID-19 a pandemic, which means that they can skip testing on animals for a vaccine. They can go straight to human testing. That seems a little sketch. So then they come out with this new vaccine that is actually mRNA, genetic research that's been going on since Fauci was involved in the AIDS stuff decades ago. They're telling us it's new, and they changed the definition of vaccine. Because we have faith in vaccines. We've been told forever vaccines are what saved us from smallpox and polio and measles and chicken pox and everything else that they have a vaccine for. And I guarantee you that if you really dig into it and you're looking for truth, you're going to go, holy crap, they've been lying to us for a long, long time. They've been changing the definitions. Do you know that the definition of polio and the diagnostic criteria for polio changed when the vaccine was introduced? They changed it. And we just kind of go, we watch the news, and the news says, here's what it is, and we kind of go, awesome. They've been changing definitions for a long time. We're becoming indoctrinated. And I don't say this against doctors. I've got some close friends, I got some mentors that are medical doctors. And they got great hearts. They're brilliant. They'll forget more stuff than I'll ever know. But they've raised themselves up and excelled to a lie. To something that doesn't line up and add up with what we know is truth. And so it's not their issue. It's not their heart issue. It's the system that is utilizing them as pawns in this thing. And at some point we have to kind of go, is it okay? Am I okay with this? Is this just okay, or is this maybe evil? Because I think that there's a good chance that it could be. And we're going to get into that. So going back to this, why would they do this? Why would they want us to believe that we need outside in, that we're really frail, we're fragile, that we're not going to survive if we don't get the right stuff? To steal, kill, and destroy. Because if we have confidence in how we're created, guess what? It's hard to be afraid. It's really difficult to be afraid. Anybody have a hard time being afraid these last 3 years? It's like, are you kidding me? There doesn't need to be fear. We've got this life that's available to us, and it's this perissos. It's super abundant beyond. So again, why? This isn't a new thing. This didn't start in 2019 when we started hearing about the coronavirus. This didn't start in 1910 when Rockefeller hired two brothers, the Flexner brothers, to go around to all of the healthcare institutions in the country and grade them. The best institutions versus the worst institutions. Because he was in petroleum and he knew how to make money, he knew that if we could take natural products for people's health, you can't make near as much money as you could if you synthesize something from petroleum products, get a patent on it, own the patent, and then you can sell it for the price you want. So these Flexner brothers, you can look this up, the Flexner Report, 1910. These guys went to all the different schools, medical schools, osteopathic schools, chiropractic schools, naturopathic schools, homeopathic, everything that had to do with healthcare. And they graded them based upon how pharmaceutically minded they were. And the ones that were more into like, yeah, we can treat this with this, they got great grades. Guess what happened to the rest of us? Any reason why people think, when they hear the word quack, the first thing that comes to mind oftentimes is chiropractor? Any reason why? Is it because we kill more people than medical doctors? No. Is it because we know less? Maybe about some things, right? I don't know anything about drugs. I mean, what makes them up and how they work. Most doctors don't know that either, actually. They're taught what to believe by the drug companies that actually provide most of their education, right? You ask a medical doctor, you ask a pediatrician, what's in this vaccine for my child that you want me to inject, and what are they going to say? Beats me. We're just told they're good, so take it, right? And if you don't, then don't come back to my office. That's what they told us when we told them we weren't going to vaccinate our kids. So this isn't a new thing. In fact, if we go back to the Bible, Revelation 18, this is kind of talking about all of this stuff that is going to be coming to light in the times that I think that we're getting into now. And this chapter is a great one. It talks about Babylon, and Babylon in Scripture is always kind of linked to the evil. It's the corrupt, it's the dark, it's the people that are involved in things that steal, kill, and destroy. And so it talks about Babylon, and it says that there's going to be this destruction that takes place. We're going to see the evil come down, and it says, never again will the light of the lamp shine in you. So basically, you're going to become dim. Your energy is going to start to wane. Never again will the voice of the bridegroom and the bride be heard in you. Christ is called the bridegroom. We're called the bride of Christ. We actually get deaf and we can't hear. We lose our ability to hear truth because we've been dimmed for such a long period of time. It says, for your merchants. Guess who's been instrumental in getting us to believe what we believe over the last generations? It's the merchants, the people of influence. They were great and prominent men of the earth because all the nations, not just the United States, all the nations, and this is a global thing we're seeing now more than ever, were deceived and misled, seduced is one of the words, by your sorcery. The Greek word for sorcery here is actually the word pharmakia. I don't know if that looks familiar to anything that that really we get exposed to on a regular basis, right? But if we take a look at this sorcery, we look at the definition of this, it's use of supernatural power over others, right? We're going to speak a spell or a curse over somebody, or we're going to give them a pill and potion. So this is through the assistance of spirits, witchcraft. This is taking and really getting plugged into evil sources. It's the art, practices, or spells of magic by which it is sought to harness occult forces or evil spirits in order to produce preternatural effects. I looked up this word because that's a word I've never used before in my life. It basically means beyond natural. So maybe not quite supernatural, maybe supernatural, stuff that wouldn't happen naturally. So think about this. If you take a supplement for a health condition, or if you eat right, when do you start feeling the results of that? Naturally, it's going to take a while, right? It takes a while for food to make a change in things. It takes a while for a supplement to kind of go, dang, I'm feeling better, or it's got me energized again, whatever I need, whatever the goal is. How about if you take a pill, a drug, a pharmaceutical? Man, we got that 20-minute mark, right? I got a headache, I'm going to take a Tylenol, 20 minutes better, it's like, phew, I'm good. It's not a natural effect. And that's what we've been connected to. That's what we expect. With babies that we take to the pediatrician because we're told to do that, because that gets us dependent upon doctors for the rest of our life, the number one illness kids have is ear infections. Doctors know, it's been researched, that kids who are given amoxicillin for an ear infection have a 6 times, we're talking 600% greater likelihood of having a recurrent ear infection than if they're given a placebo. But guess what they say? Well, the parents are expecting us to give them this antibiotic, and so we want to please them and do it. We expect this. And we walk into the doctor's office, and I just filled out this questionnaire that I saw on TV that said, I probably have these 3 letters arranged in whatever order they're in, so, do I need to get this medication, right? We go in, they've conditioned us to do this. And it's interesting, it's only in the US and in New Zealand, the only 2 countries in the world where drug companies can advertise direct to consumers because they know we'll buy it. We'll go out there and do it. So sorcery. The other word that I had you kind of look at a second ago is pharmakia. This is a Greek word for sorcery. This is what shows up in the Bible when it talks about what's going to happen with all of this destruction taking place. Magic spells curses or poisonous charm, pills and potions, right? We're going to take eye of newt and we're going to stir it up into this thing. We're going to take and put it into a little magic apple and say, eat this apple, and we're going to control you because you're going to be asleep until the magic prince comes and gives you a kiss, right? This is what sorcery looks like. The employment of drugs for any purpose. The employment of drugs to take control of your blood pressure, or take control of your cholesterol, or take control of your fever, or take control of your thoughts. You guys realize that Prozac, that these mind-altering chemicals, these psychotropic drugs, they're actually taking control of your thoughts. That's why kids that are given these drugs, these antidepressants, are 8 times more likely to kill themselves than if they didn't get the medication. It changes the way we think. It's control. It's evil. And again, I'm not out here to say, to offend anybody, to put myself on a pedestal or anything else, because guess what? This is what I grew up with. This is the model, this is the truth that I'd embraced. But guess what? It's not a real truth. And there is a better truth that we can embrace too. There's a way that seems right to a person, but in the end it is a way to death. To me, I think that describes what we believe about our healthcare system. It seems right. We've been told it's right. In fact, we've been told to do it for everybody else, right? Because it's that right. This is so right that if it doesn't work for me, it's going to work for the person that can't get it. This is so right that if we don't all get it, it's wrong. It doesn't work at all. There's a way that seems right to a man, and in the end it leads to death. I like this from the Passion Translation, the same verse. You can rationalize it all you want. You can justify the path of error that you have chosen, but you'll find out in the end that you took the road to destruction. And it comes down to is that we need to recognize that we should be thinking about what we believe. We should believe intentionally based upon asking good questions and not necessarily doing it based upon what we're told is popular or the way to think. In fact, I heard J.P. Sears, if you guys are familiar with him, the guy with the long red hair, he's funny, he's hilarious, very well versed. But he said, you know what, probably a good way to live life right now is to take everything you hear from the media. And he said he doesn't care what side of the media you're listening to. Take everything you hear from them and think the opposite. Probably some wisdom that comes there, because guess what? We need to take and realize that there's a way that we've been taught and conditioned, and how's it working out? It's not working out real well. In fact, here's how it works out in the United States. This is actually going back to 2003 when Gary Null actually published this originally. The total number of iatrogenic, these are medically caused deaths. These are the things that happen because 126,000 people die every year by taking their medicine the way that they're supposed to. This is an overdose. This is just, that's what happens. But basically, we take a look at these medically caused deaths shown on the following table, 784,000 a year. We take a look at what happens with, and this is going back to 2003. At that time, there was roughly between 400 and 500,000 people every year that died from cancer and from heart disease. So guess what that means? The number one cause of death in the United States is our medical system, that we put more faith in than we do in the power that breathes life into us. In fact, going back to B.J. Palmer, the founder of chiropractic, have you more faith in a spoonful of medicine than in the power that animates the living world? And it really is a gut check, right? What are we putting our faith in? I heard about a pastor, I think I even shared this a month ago. I heard about a pastor during the pandemic when churches were able to open up again. He said, okay, next week I want everybody to bring all of your medication and your Bibles. And so they all come and they've got their bags of stuff. And, you know, if they're like people that have come in here through the years, some of them were probably dragging wagons, you know, loaded with all kinds of stuff, because the more the better, right? If it's 19.1 per person, we've got a lot of stuff to bring in our Bible. And so as he starts talking about things, he starts talking about what is our belief? What is our truth? And he goes, okay, now you guys can leave, but you can only take one. You can only take your medication, or you can only take your Bible. You know, that's a gut check, because, you know, we act on what we believe. And it's super easy to say, oh man, I've got solid beliefs. I believe that my car can run on air. I don't even need to put gas in the tank. But guess what? When that needle starts getting close to the E, I'll find out what my true belief is, right? I believe medicine is, I believe, you know, whatever. But when we get sick, when we get really ill, when we get scared by what's going on, what is the action that we take? And so with that is that's what this next series of the healing school is going to be about, is, you know, asking questions to get good answers, and to maybe even change what we've been conditioned to think for decades, for generations. That maybe there's a better way that we can take and start expressing this perissos that we're designed and created to live with. So as we go forward from here, we're going to be open up for discussion here pretty quick, but as we go forward from here, we're going to be taking some time and going through some things that really kind of rattled and rocked me from a book called Anti-Fragile. And I actually referred to it quite a bit with some of the videos that I put out over the last couple of years. And this is based upon the concept that we have this mindset of being fragile, that our health is fragile, that our economy is fragile, our education system is fragile, everything in life is fragile, and that it's stacked up blocks ready just to come toppling down. And so we live kind of delicate. We live in this place of fear. And so he talks about it from all different perspectives, but obviously I was drawn to the healthcare part of it. And he said, but think about this. You go to the gym and you do a workout, and you're actually breaking down muscle, and it repairs even stronger. Comes back bigger and stronger than it was before. You break a bone, and it heals with a callus around there that makes it stronger than it was before. You catch an infection. Your body's immune system had to go deep and pull out all of the stops and all of the symptoms to fight it. You come back with a more robust immune system than you had before. You don't come back equal, you come back better. And so the author said, you know, he was trying to think about this, you know, what's a word that's the opposite of fragile? Because that really is what we are. And he's a linguist. He knows a lot of different languages. He couldn't come up with a word in any language. So he made up the term anti-fragile. That we are actually anti-fragile. That's that if we live our life from a place of understanding the strengths, and that we're made to recover stronger than we were before. So guess what? With all the nuttiness that's gone on in the last couple of years with our economy, our education system, our political system, our health, everything else, we can embrace this belief that guess what? It can come back stronger than before. But it comes back stronger than before by our beliefs. And again, we'll be digging into this, is that a lot of the actions that we take and that we've been conditioned to take actually make things more fragile. And we have to kind of get out of the way and go back to letting that anti-fragility come back. So this is kind of the definition of this. Anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. So we actually can grow through chaos and disorder. So guess what? These last 2 years have been an awesome opportunity for us to come back stronger than before. In fact, what's interesting is that one of the things he talks about, and I think this is really critical for us to embrace with our mindset, is he talks about people that have been deployed and come back from just seeing and experiencing horrific things. He talks about people who have been through major traumatic events, and that they'll come back and a lot of them will have PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. And that really is kind of a label, because he says equally, he sees people come back and experience post-traumatic growth. Because guess what? Our circumstances don't define us. It's how we respond to those. We can go through a major traumatic event and come back and kind of go, that sucked. That was hard. That was painful. That hurt. Man, I can certainly empathize for people going through similar situations. I can look at life through a different lens and embrace the hope of overcoming things and come back stronger than before, more rounded, more emotionally strong than we were before. So as we take and embrace this journey, this is going to be, hey, how do we take and tap into this perisos? How do we take and tap into this anti-fragility and see it express itself? So with that said, and again, I left off with this last time, is if you have any questions that you would like us to explore, that's what this is. This is a journey that we're going on together to get to these places we want to go to. Okay? Now, it's open to whoever wants to chime in if you have questions, if you have comments about this. Yes?
One challenge actually that I have is I hang around with a lot of people that are Christians, and they say, you know, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. And when I took my pill and my back is better now.
Yep.
You know, oh yeah, she's sick because she had a liver put in from a man's kidney or liver put in.
Sure.
It's not working now. Oh, too bad. And so, but she's a Christian.
Sure.
And I don't know how to break through that. I mean, I often say, you know, share my story.
Yeah.
You know, this is how I deal with this, right? But
So maybe here's a good question to respond to that. How many people would basically say, you know, I'm a Christian too? Or they would identify, you know, say that, yeah, my beliefs are kind of in the Christian arena. Okay, so that's a good majority of us. How many of us have this all figured out?
What all figured out?
All of this. Everything. Truth. Capital T truth. All of it. Universal truth.
Yes.
How many of us have it figured out? Guess what? We don't. But how do we change things? So I think it's asking those questions with that. And believe me, I get it, is that we in our churches have more faith in a spoonful of medicine than we do in the power that breathed life in the universe. We do. And well, yeah. And so it's one of those things where, how do we change that culture?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the glory of God is man, humankind being in perisos. We can exemplify, we can demonstrate that. You know, it's interesting is that, you know, I feel like, you know, at our church I go to, they've maybe embracing this better than some. And that's maybe from the leadership down. You know, we've got people that represent all different levels of belief in all areas. But I think that from the top down, there's this starting to embrace. It's not there yet, but it's starting to be embraced. And I'm hoping to have influence on that. I'm over there adjusting every Tuesday and getting my hands and getting my voice on the people in there to say, hey, what if? So there's some embracing in that going on. And so just a couple of weeks ago, a gal that comes in here invited her brother to the Easter service because they were going to be praying for healing. And so she brought him along and said, come along. And as the pastor's up there and saying, all right, now let's go after it. Anybody got any health conditions? And he gets this word from God that says, somebody here has pain in their upper back. If you have pain in your upper back, stand up. So this guy's like, whoa, that's me. So he stood up. And so the people around prayed. And as they were praying, the pastor goes, okay, what are you noticing? Scale of 0 to 10. How's your back pain? 0. Wow. You know, that's what would be considered normal, right? That should be normal supernatural healing. That's the good part. That's the perisos. But beyond what we can even imagine, super abundant. So this gal and her brother go to brunch after church. And so kind of a little bit of background on his story, he has bone infection in his thoracic spine. So he's got infection in there that just causes inflammation of the bone, incredibly painful. He's taken like 4 different pain medications, and he's got basically a port in his chest where they give him antibiotics a couple times a day. So he just experienced this major breakthrough. Pain gone. Woof, hallelujah. Goes to brunch, and he goes, oh, I got to go get my medication. And so, you know, how do you reconcile that? You know, here's my response is, guess what? We're all in process. We haven't arrived. We don't have it figured out. And guess what? It's not for us to judge. It's for us to kind of go, this guy got a taste of a miracle. And from my perspective, he could have had a bigger taste. But guess what? He got a bite. And that when he's ready for the next bite, it's going to be there available for him. And that's, that's the great thing about this, the abundant life, the life to the full, is that we get a lot of chances for do-overs. So that if we don't quite get it right, guess what? That issue is going to come up again, and we get a chance to grow. Yeah.
Well, sharing your story, you planted a seed, or
Yeah.
it was the
Exactly.
first trumpet, and it takes at least maybe 18 exposures
Yeah.
to the same
Yeah.
information before something goes click.
And it may look like nothing happened because the seed just got buried with
You
dirt,
know,
right?
like when I eat just normal food, I don't feel this. I have a salad, one salad. What do I feel after I eat that meal?
Yeah.
Full, hopefully, but how will I feel after I have 1,000 salads? So it builds up over time.
Yep. I think we talked about titration last time too, right? It's just drip, 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 and make a change. Yeah, Marie, do you have something?
I think he experienced fear. Fear caused
Sure.
that reaction.
Yeah.
Where maybe when he was healed, he needed some type of, not some type, but he needed words of encouragement that
Sure.
would build him up. And then he'd be courageous, and then he would decide, hey, I don't want to take that.
I think that's great. In fact, that was the conversation I had with the staff the next week at the meeting was, how can we take and start maybe giving people some things to think about where do you go now? Right? Something's different here. Do you go and do what you've done before? And again, asking the question, not saying don't go back and do that, and coming down judgmentally. Do you go to your doctor and say, you know what? I just experienced this really crazy thing. Can you check me? Because guess what? If it's a miracle and healing took place, it's going to be verifiable, right? And so that can actually overcome the fear too. So I think that conversation with that can happen. But I think it also comes down to is, guess what? We've been embracing this concept of fragility and fear for so long that it makes it really, really, really difficult. So we can believe in our heart, my cancer's gone. I'm supposed to have chemotherapy next week. What do I do right now, right? Well, it depends where you are on this, on this spectrum of what you're thinking. So, yeah, Deb.
Well, I gotta tell you this, my sister, and you've met her, Miss Negativity, and oh my God. Anyway, they've said over the years, I've been kind of working on her and standing up to her and going, no, if you're gonna act like that, I'm leaving. Well, recently she fell and broke her ankle in 3 places. She's now got 12 screws and plates and everything else. Now, normally, Miss Negativity, she has been very upbeat. And we were talking on the phone here in Florida, and she said, well, the doctor said, I'll never have full mobility. And I says, well, you realize the doctor's got to give you worst case scenario. That doesn't mean that's you. And she went, oh, you're right. And she's been like this exemplary in the rehabilitation and stuff, and I'm like, hallelujah.
So you've been watering that seed for a long, long time, and it gets to that point. It really is that way.
Being a light.
Yeah. So that goes back to, how many times have we heard something from the doctors that really puts us into that place? And if you remember, we talked about the sorcery or the pharmakeia, and that it can start with spells or curses. And so it does come down to is that this is how much time you got left, or this is what it's going to look like. This is the limitation of what you've got. Guess what? What would it be like if we could actually choose whether to accept that or reject it? And then take action accordingly with that. So, I think that all of these are great questions because guess what? None of us have arrived. And so none of the people that we know have arrived. So we can start asking questions, having conversations, planting seeds, watering those seeds, and that together we start to we get to experience other people's miracles, and that feeds our own faith, right? That tends to dampen the fears that go on with that. Yeah.
I don't know how to really say it, but I feel very fortunate now that I've seen the rest of the world. Growing up, I had the voice inside of me saying, you already know the answer.
Yeah.
And I had a mother that was very supportive of that. She was very sensitive. Sometimes it's good to have a sensitive body where things affect you easily,
Sure.
because you're more likely to ask questions or get help. And also, even when I was being, this probably doesn't happen just to me, it happens probably to a lot of people. I was bullied in the doctor's office. I just I stayed regulated and calm and just said, well, it's my decision. I'm going to do more research. I need to know more before I make a decision for you, because it is my, I look at the doctor, says, you're great, you learned a lot, you can't do everything. You're not with me 24/7, so I'm gonna do my part.
Yeah, and that's brilliant right there, right? And I think that it does come back to that, is that, I think that in each one of us, there's something in our heart that when we do hear absolute truth, it resonates. And it may not vibrate a lot because it's been suppressed by a lot of stuff. Our lamp may have grown dim. We may not hear the bridegroom and his voice of truth very clearly, but there's something that's in there. And so I think that's where, if we go back to asking the right questions, we start to take and bring things back to this place of shifting, changing the way that we think, so that then we become more sensitive to the truth that's there. And then as we start to even recognize, maybe, what if this isn't completely true? I want to research it some more. And we take back control and say, give me some time. Wait a minute. We're not in a hurry right now, even though they want us to be in a hurry. We had a gal years ago that came in when we were doing our cancer killer workshops, and she was diagnosed with the most aggressive form of breast cancer there is. And so she came in a panic. They want to start chemotherapy tomorrow. They're going to do a double mastectomy and all these different things. And time was of the essence. And so I said, I want you to go home, take the weekend, rest, be still, be quiet, pray, read the Bible, whatever you need to do. Take a deep breath. And so, long story short, she didn't do any of the recommendations that they gave to her. It's been at least 10 years. She's fully alive. She's still got both of her breasts. She didn't die. She's a survivor of this. So, again, it's one of those things where we have to kind of stop and go, fear takes us down a dark path pretty quick. And so sometimes we just need to stop, take a deep breath. How does this align with truth? And then start pursuing that in that direction. Yeah.
Some people may think that, oh, she's special, she can do that. But I think basically it's a gift we have from our Creator that we all have that capability. It's what you believe, your intent. So, then just get out of that, oh, they're special. Only those guys could be rich. It's.
So I love that you said that, and I think this is a great place to wrap it up. We're welcome to talk as long as you want. But what really, again, I think I said that Holy Spirit kind of hijacked my plan for what we're going to do with these workshops and turn it into a school. And what really kind of orchestrated that was asking a question, what if the Bible is true? Right? Because that's just what is your belief? What if the Bible is true? Because in the Bible it says these things, it talks about the miracles that Jesus did and his disciples did. They went around everywhere they went and they healed everybody. It says these things, and even greater things than these, will follow those that believe. What if that's true? And what if the limitation is what we believe? What if we can take and start asking some really good questions to change what we believe and start going around and laying hands on the sick and seeing them recover? That's where we're headed. That's my vision for this thing, and that we're all. It doesn't say these things will follow those that still have a chiropractic degree, right, or some kind of special training or anything else. Because guess what? We'd all be unqualified with that. But guess what? It's those who believe. We can all become qualified by changing our beliefs, our expectations, and anchor it to an absolute truth that doesn't change. So, yeah, that's why it's not special for her. It's something that's available to all of us. Yeah.
I got a question. So, what would you say? Because I think I know some people would say, their spiritual faith would basically trump their physical health. Like, well, why should I even, exercise or eat well or something like that? Because I have faith in God and my days are numbered, and He's going to do with my life what He cares to, with my life, and I don't really have that much control over my life anyway. I'm just trusting in God, kind of thing.
I would, with a lot of people that I hear that from, they're really intentional with their finances. right? They see that they have a responsibility to steward their finances, to take responsibility for those things, and to be diligent with how they use those. Guess what? What is the difference between being a good steward of one kind of resource and completely neglecting another resource? Right? So it would be that, again, bringing things to a place of asking questions, but getting to some congruency in it. And again, that's a great question. How much do we defer to God? Right? Tim Hawkins, I've played a video of him. He's a Christian comedian praying over food for a long time. And he goes, Lord, turn this bag of Cheetos and this jumbo Dr. Pepper into something healthy for me, right? We can get that way to where we're foolish. It could be, you know what, I just won the lottery and I'm going to go and buy everything on the planet and do all kinds of stuff. And we're foolish. So there's a stewardship that comes with that, a spiritual responsibility, I think. And so if there is some kind of stewardship that's being exercised, then it would be posing, well, then why would that not apply here?
Our bodies are the temple of.
Yes, and it was bought at a price that is not your own, so honor God by taking care of your body. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways to look at that. And guess what? I heard Jordan Rubin talk about this. He said that, you know what? There's laws of the land, right? There's speed limits. There's don't kill and steal and these kinds of things. You violate those laws, and there's penalties. Guess what? There's laws of nature. You eat Cheetos and giant Dr. Peppers, it's going to toxify your body. It's anti-nutrients. It's going to suck life out of you, and you're going to get sick. There's laws that apply to all of us, right? Gravity. I'm so spiritually minded, I can walk right off the edge of this building, right? Guess what? It's foolishness. So we have to take and apply that understanding to things that way. So again, the laws exist for all of us. As long as we're walking, in this dirt suit that we're walking around in, those things are going to apply to us. Yeah.
It is written, faith without works is dead. And for heaven's sakes, use the tools given to you the right way,
Yeah.
and ask for help if you don't know how to use them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. Guess what we love to do as Christians is that selective use of Scripture, right? We had a pastor years ago, and he actually got one of the hymnals because he didn't want to ruin a Bible, but he had a hymnal that looked like a Bible. He's up there and he's going, ooh, I like that one. That's good. So he gets a highlighter and starts highlighting what that verse said, prosperity and all these different things, health and vitality. And then he goes this one, ooh, be diligent, quickly obey, take up your cross daily. Tears that page out, wads it up, and throws it on the floor. And that's kind of how we are. It's like, you know what, I want to believe it so that it's going to be simple and that I don't have to really take responsibility, but I want to get all the benefits that come with that. And we have to read cover to cover and apply all of that with the best understanding that we can get with it.
Yes, you're planting seeds.
Planting seeds.
Johnny Appleseed never saw a tree grow, but he planted seeds,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Well, and even going back to your question is that there's a way that seems right to a man, and in the end it leads to death. Is the way that the steps that you're taking and what you're doing, is it taking you down a path towards growth and increased function, or is it taking you down a path where there's going to be more stress, more toxicity, more damage, more oxidation, more wear and tear? And so again, that applies to us. We got to take and figure out which path are we on, and is the one we want to stay on, or do we maybe want to take and go a different direction? And again, that's why we're here, because we're not on the right path yet, but we're going the right direction. So we'll get there. Got anything else? Okay, so here's where this gets kind of fun, is that Michelle and I were talking about this earlier, and we're kind of going, who do we need to really take and focus on that needs to hear these truths, or needs to ask these questions, or need to be challenged in what they believe? And it really is all of us, because none of us have arrived. And so with that is that if we have a circle of influence, it is the 5 people we spend the most time with, we're the average of them. And so if they're taking us down this negative path, I had a guy that came in for years and years and years, really dedicated to everything that we did, every event, every workshop. He built most of our furniture in here, and he would show up anytime for anything. And he was actually married to the gal that worked for me, my office manager. They got a divorce. He got married to somebody who didn't believe the same way. He stopped coming in. Over the last 2 years, he has blasted me publicly on every social thing out there about killing people because of my beliefs. And so guess what? We need to take and figure out, okay, I want to go on this really cool Perissos journey. Who do I want to bring with me? And again, just, hey, this is going to be kind of asking some questions and maybe seeing if there's a different perspective, a better truth that we can be anchored to. So be thinking about, we were even talking, we need a bigger building already. I see that this is going to become, such a big thing where we're going to see community changed because we start changing the way that we think. So second Wednesday of every month, and my guess is for eternity, that we're going to be continuing to ask questions. So, figure out a way to make it work, and if you can bring people with you, that's even better.
But no more first, it's not twice a month?
Well, it may become that way. It could be. It could be that we're just here 24/7. Who knows? I mean, that's right. That's right. You got to bring the Cheetos next week. Well, we're going to test our faith and see if that Cheeto can be turned into a carrot stick. That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for being here. I love and appreciate you guys. I love that we're starting to get the culture back to where we're being intentional about what we think and what we're doing. So, yes.
Speaking of, Kara and I could be here tonight, and so she asked me to be a messenger on her behalf, and wondered if before we go, could we say a blessing upon her mother, Leanne
Yeah.
Larson, that's in the hospital. She's unable to stand on her legs.
Yeah.
And it happened
Definitely.
suddenly.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to what's our belief. That we're told that, if you're sick, to go to the elders of the church, have them anoint you with oil, and pray the healing prayer, and you will be free, you will be saved. And so guess what? We know that Jesus was able to heal across a distance without even being able to lay hands and anoint with oil. But he spoke healing to that. And so with us is a gal whose lymph nodes were removed 14 years ago from a surgery. Now her legs are swollen and she can't get the fluid out of there because her body was wrecked. But guess what? These things will follow those that believe. So, Lord, we do come, and we come with really an expectant hope that our belief will continue to increase, that we will be able to lay hands on. We'll be able to speak words of healing. So right now, we exercise that today. We exercise the belief that as we speak, action takes place. That as God spoke and the universe was created, we can speak healing right now. And so, Lord, I speak new lymph nodes. I speak increased circulation. I speak new health, new life, new vitality right now in Jesus' name, that we will see supernatural take place where even the preternatural couldn't happen. And so we speak life, we speak healing, we speak restoration right now in Jesus' name. And we know that the power of our words travel across and are making an impact right now. And we celebrate the victory we have in Jesus' name. Amen.